Why, hello, my friend Rich Evans.
Hi, Mike. I see you've had us gather here today. What are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 3?
Nope.
Oh, okay, well, the Mandalorian Season 2.
Not that either.
The Expanse?
Today we're going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1.
Oh my God! So Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1. The dreaded Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1.
Yes, this is the thing the internet wants us to talk about the least. So we both kind of ignored Star Trek The Next Generation when it first came out. I was like,
That's not Kirk.
because this had been in like the works for a while. The Star Trek Phase 2, everybody knows about that. Phase 2 became the motion picture. So it was like a whole backstory. I think we talked about this before. And it got off to a rocky start, to say the least, for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
One being Gene Roddenberry was a notorious prick running Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1.
And I feel that it was because he felt cut out of the movies that he wanted absolute control on this TV series. And that put a lot of pressure on him when he wasn't in the best of health. And also, I sometimes think he thought we were all his enemies, but we weren't.
There were writers that were just quitting left and right. New writers would come in. He had this mandate where all the characters can't have conflicts. The Star Trek crew,
Yeah.
They can't have inner conflicts. They all have to work together peacefully. You can't have this, you can't have that. And they were like, how do we write dramatic television when we have all these rules? And he would come in, and I think I read that the first 15 scripts, the first 15 episodes, Gene Roddenberry would take it and I'm gonna fix everything.
There were scripts that there was no discussion. Gene would take them and just eviscerate them or rewrite them completely.
So it ended up being sort of a not so great experience for a lot of the actors and people involved in Season 1.
Yeah.
Rocky start,
Yeah.
to say the least. And then it, of course, found its footing.
We're growing. Something about us compels us to learn.
It's also a challenge when, I feel bad. I love Star Trek The Next Generation, and I want to recommend people watch it, but I feel bad because I know what I say. I know when I tell you that you should watch Star Trek The Next Generation, you go, okay, I'll start at the beginning. That's the logical thing to do. And then you get hit with Encounter at Farpoint, which is one of the better episodes of Season 1, and it's also terrible.
Yes. Well, that's the thing is, I went through all the episodes of Season 1, and I found little bright spots here and there that I enjoyed. And
You challenged me. Specifically, you challenged me to find 3 episodes I like in Season 1.
you say challenge, I say torture.
Yes.
I will fully admit I did this for my own sick pleasure.
Because I got 2.5.
Oh, 2.5.
I got 2.5. I technically have 3.
I have 3.5.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm very we don't know each other's picks.
Yeah. I'm
very curious to see what you picked. Because, oh boy, there are some episodes I hate. And I've almost finished watching Season 2 now. Mm-hmm. And there are some episodes that I hate in Season 2, but there are some really darn good ones.
Season 2 is really weird. 1 is consistently, Yeah. Season 2, it's got the worst episodes of all time, but it's also got the best. Season 2 is peaks and valleys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ironically, the valley is, I wanted to say peak performance. But I thought peak performance was shades of gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
That joke really would have worked
It would have.
if Shades of Grey was called peak performance. But we all know peak performance is we talked about the production of it, how it was a disaster, everything went wrong. Everybody hated being on the show to the point where one of the main cast members said she wanted to quit.
Have you been treated well, Lieutenant?
The writers all hated Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry hated the writers. The production crew hated the actors.
There was a real uncomfortable dynamic that existed between what was going on stage and what was happening in the offices. There was real conflict there.
If you're not careful, you could kill yourself.
The actors hated the production crew. Craft services hated the actors. The actors loved the craft service food, though.
My first pick is episode called 11001001.
Okay.
The Binars episode.
All right.
And this is an episode, it's not the most complicated plot in the world.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
That can be applied to all 26 episodes of season 1.
So the Enterprise is coming in to get some upgrades to its computer systems. And so it's going into Stardock. And they reuse some gorgeous Star Trek 3 shots of a starbase. They just replace the Enterprise A with the D going into the dock.
Yes, and in 70 years' time, they build a Stardock that is 55 times bigger than the Stardock scene in the...
Because the D is so much larger. Yeah, that makes sense.
Fits right in that door.
Fits right in.
Just like the Enterprise A. It's fine. Also, I believe it's season 2 when the Enterprise goes... Oh, it's Measure of a Man. When the Enterprise goes to the Regular 1 base.
Yeah.
And, oh boy, it is not to scale. The Regular 1 base is a tiny base that they've reused that model multiple times. And then the Regular 1 base is behind, it's not that base, it's a star base.
Yeah.
But it's behind the Enterprise D. And the base is this big, and the Enterprise D is floating in front of it this big, which means the windows on the star base would have to be about 15 stories tall.
But the main reason I picked this episode, like the main one, it took some time to flesh out some crew members. This is like the first time I think in the series we see the crew like have a life outside of their jobs.
Then I'm going to my cabin, I'm going to put my feet up, I'm going to turn on my personal relaxation light, and I'm going to lose myself in the pages of some old novel.
Picard is talking about how he's looking forward to just staying in his quarters and reading a good book, which is a very Picard thing to do. Data she's trying to paint, and his best friend Geordi is there helping him paint, and that's a character thing. That is Data. He's not just on the bridge saying, "I have calculated the odds of us surviving this." No, it's just little. You see, we see some of the first human moments on this show. The season 1, what I found rewatching season 1, very dry. As far as the characters go. And it's like just seeing Tasha Yar and Worf dressed in like some kind of sports outfits, they're getting ready to play a game together. Those little touches like that was neat.
If winning is not important, then Commander, why keep score?
If winning is not important, then why keep score?
Yes. I don't have much other good to say about it. This is the Minuet episode.
Yes. That's my least favorite thing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so the premise is the Binars.
The Binars are this alien race, and that's another. I guess I'll get into that later. That's another good thing. I like the Binars, but they are like a race that is highly integrated with their computers. Like their central computer on their planet is very important for them to even live. They are so connected to their computers. But the problem is, a star near them has gone supernova, which is going to wipe out their computers for a bit, and that will kill them all. So they need to steal the Enterprise so they can upload their computer onto the Enterprise temporarily to save their species. So their whole thing is they're going to fake this little disaster on the Enterprise. that'll cause them to like eject the ship out of the
They
star
want to
pack.
hijack the ship.
They're going to hijack the ship to save their planet as a backup in case they all pass out and die before they can finish their task. They want Riker and Picard on the ship just as a backup. Like, if we all die, these two guys, they'll come about and they'll solve our problems for us. Right. But we need to keep them on the ship while getting everybody else off the ship. So they create Minuet.
Right.
Gentlemen, if this is what you call enhancement, you've got a gift for understatement.
Because they're so computerly advanced, the holodeck is probably just like a child's toy to them. They did some tweaks to it, and they realized they could create a very realistic human. That Riker, who is the resident sex predator, he is enamored with and distracted by. And of course, Picard...
This is a wonderfully awkward moment where Picard walks in on Riker's sex fantasy. Picard's almost got this like smug look on his face, like he knows what's going on.
Right. No, two's company, three's a crowd.
Riker's like, oh, no, it's fine. Come on in.
What's wrong with
we weren't
that?
doing anything.
I don't need your fantasy women.
And then we can get into some unintentionally creepy stuff here.
Riker does creepier things in later episodes.
Yeah, sure, but one of the things you have to notice when watching season 1 is just the way they write women. Like, the episode Naked Now, the drunk virus. Yeah. All of the male characters in that show, they're bravely holding their space liquor. Like, no, we gotta fight this and solve this problem. All of the female characters instantly become man crazy and horny.
I'm a woman. I haven't had the comfort of a husband, a man. You wanted me?
I'm getting you to sick bay.
Wouldn't you rather be alone with me? With me in your mind?
And it's the most cringe thing ever. So you have this scene in Minuet where they're talking to Minuet like she's an object. I mean, she is an object, but it's just kind of, works at another unintended level.
Great job, boys. But computer, blondes and jazz seldom go together.
It's a show that was made in the late 80s with scripts that were written in the 60s for the original show by writers who grew up in the 30s.
Now that is truly exceptional.
See, here's the thing. Roddenberry, very progressive gentleman, but when it came to sex, his attitude was, yes, please. And so he wanted them women in those mini skirts.
I thought that the women's roles, I thought they didn't have to tell me, were stereotypical and not thought through, and that they were fulfilling a kind of archetypal female television role, the token dark-haired one, the token, in our case, redhead, the token blonde with Denise.
110011 Binar code.
Yeah.
Fine episode. I kind of like that the Binars they're kind of childlike.
This was something else. I like them as like a race in Star Trek. Every other Star Trek race is just like normal people, but with shit on their forehead. Yeah. But we recognize them as basically being and acting, human. Like Ferengis, they're just greedy people, basically. But the Binars feel alien to me, and just like the way their society potentially is, the way they behave,
Would you like to try the enhancement?
All right.
They communicate, they work in pairs.
Yeah.
hence the Binars. And then, yeah, they're linked to their partner, and they communicate back and forth. They find speech is too slow.
Yeah. And the makeup's a little bit more complicated than just, we're going to slap some shit on their nose.
Yes, and they're shorter. They're little people.
Yeah.
They're pink. They have an interesting look to them. An interesting idea that they're so advanced that they've incorporated technology, which is probably the future of humanity at some point.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And then at the end, Picard's just like,
why didn't you just ask for our help?
Why didn't you just ask us for help? And they said, if we asked, you could have said no.
For a race that's connected to the computer, just all logic, made perfect sense. Too important to ask. We must do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though there was like a 99% chance the Federation would have agreed to help them, the computer logic can't take the chance. 1% chance, not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So those are some positives I found.
I think I just found the holodeck stuff creepy.
Oh yeah.
And general unexcitement of it.
Season 1.
Which is season 1.
Season 1. Oh, I will say, I have a thing here in my notes for the 11001001 episode. Geordi says the dumbest thing that Geordi has ever said. Because I think it's Wesley detects like a major antimatter malfunction.
I'm reading a problem with the magnetic containment field which contains the antimatter. Could you come up here?
Like the ship might blow up, and Geordi says, don't tell the captain until we've checked this out ourselves.
We'll go to engineering since that's where the trouble is. Wes, don't disturb the captain or Commander Riker until we check this out. Aye, sir.
It's like, Geordi.
He spent a little too much time on Benzar.
Wait. Oh, yeah, okay. I get that joke. It's a good season 2 episode.
Didn't mean to offend you.
My first pick from season 1, Symbiosis. And I think I mentioned this to you.
Well, that's one of mine.
Very good. We can talk all about it.
And now I'm left without a good third. So this is great.
This might be the best episode in season 1.
It's pretty good.
Even though it's very simplistic, again, but that's fine.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I have it as ethical and a prime directive.
Yeah.
It's both. So the Enterprise is out to mediate a dispute between 2 neighboring planets. While they're out there, they run into a freighter that's falling apart. The guidance system's broken, and I think it's about to crash into a planet, right? And everybody on the freighter just seems like they're drunk.
Well, that is a little vague. What is the computer analysis?
Well, the computer's not working very well.
Or stupid.
They seem like they're stupid, because I think like they seem like they're drunk. That's kind of a clue as to what's going on. But at first, you watch it, you just think they're stupid. It reminded me of the Packlids.
Do you need help?
We are Packlids. Our ship is the Mondor. It is broken.
Captain, how long have you been in command of this freighter?
7 years. This is my 26th voyage to Brekka.
And you don't know how to align a control coil?
Never come up.
Can anyone else over there do it?
Hold on, I'll ask.
The lead guy, there's 2 guys. The lead guy is Merrick Buttrick, who played Kirk's son.
Yeah. It's also a Rathacon reunion, because the other guy from the other planet, he was Khan's henchman.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The Brekkians.
Yes.
The Brekkians are the bad race. One of the Brekkians, there's a male and a female. The male is the guy who is Khan's right-hand man. And then there's a lady Brekkian, and their costumes, they both look like they walked off the set of Battlestar Galactica. like right out of 1974. And it's just great.
Did they use costumes from when they were developing Phase 2 in the 70s?
Maybe. But the Onarians are the victim race. That's Merrick Buttrick and his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I approve of the choice of names. Onarians, right? Onarian, nice, flows right off the tongue, and then Breckians, some hard consonants in there, makes them sound bad, right?
And the ship is falling apart, and very importantly, none of them have any idea how to fix it, or even how the damn ship even works, really.
Which plays into the story later.
Yeah.
And so they're like, Picard and Riker, they're on the bridge, and they're like, what do you need? They're like, some kind of space coil, and they're like, we could send it to you. Cool. Thanks, I guess. Do you know how to put it in? Does anybody know how to put it in?
I don't know, Dave.
I don't know. Bob, do you know how? And so they sound like they're drunk or high or stupid. And so Picard's just like baffled. Like, how do you not know how to fix your own ship? You're flying around in a spaceship. Like, do you know anything? And they just sound like totally out of it.
What is the matter with these people? How can you be captain of that vessel and not understand its simplest function?
So through a little adventurous sequence, they manage to beam out. They lose some crew members, right? The first thing they do is they beam over their cargo.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, more important than their lives. They beam their cargo over, and Picard's like, what, the cargo? What? Get it off the pad. Beam some people over. They beam over 2 Onarians and 2 Breckians. The core of our conflict.
I want to say right now, too, by the way, if you have any intention of watching this shit, stop right now and watch this. Because I think this is better to watch, like, when you don't know the twists that are coming.
Yeah. You could skip ahead to this time code for our next pick. It's nice that we overlapped here.
Yeah.
Which is good. We don't know our picks. So we're going to continue with spoilers for Symbiosis. A Star Trek Season 1 episode.
Well, it's almost like a double twist to this episode, because that's like the first reveal. That's what you think the episode is going to be. It's like, oh no, we need that race or medicine because our race has a deadly virus. And then you think watching this, oh, this is going to be a virus episode.
And Picard goes through all the protocol. He's like, wait a minute. They're in the briefing room, and the conference room. Picard's like, wait a minute. You're both infected? He's like, medical emergency, Did this get filtered out during the transport? And Riker's like, I don't know. Solar flares. Maybe. Picard's like, whoa.
Star Trek has a lot of virus episodes.
There's a lot of virus episodes. And so we discover that, this race is sick. The Breckians were on the ship to bring over the medicine to Onaria, these 2 planets that are nearby.
Technically, the Onarians went over with their ship to the Breckians to pick up the medicine because the Breckians, importantly, they don't have much in the way of technology.
So the big situation of the episode is they only, between the 2 races on 2 different planets, they only have 3 working spaceships. The first one is destroyed, and then they have other 2 with similar problems, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, your drug addict with the barely working 1982 Honda Accord, right? Who's got to go and pick up his stash, but the engine won't start. They have 2 barely working spaceships now. That's how they get back and forth between the 2 planets. The Breckians produce the medicine. The Onarians desperately need it to survive this plague. And so the Breckians say, okay, we'll allow a dose, right? And so Dr. Crusher's, she's got her nose in all the business. She's like, what's going on? What are your symptoms, right? Well, once we get the medicine, we feel pretty good for about 48 hours. And then it starts to come back. And she's like, interesting virus, it doesn't have a lifespan. It doesn't have symptoms. It just is very persistent.
Can't detect it in any way, shape, or form.
I can't detect it. It seems very much like something else. And she wants to keep her mouth closed. Then they show them get their drug. This is little, which they describe the drug amount as something milliliters.
What's the dosage? 0.01 milliliters.
But they take the little pill and they put it in the thing, and then I don't know how they use it, but they're like, they feel better. And Dr. Crusher's like, she figured this out rather quickly.
I like that there's enough clues that you as an audience member paying attention,
right,
you can figure this out on your own before they tell you. I like that.
Yeah, well, something suspicious because the Breckians are just like, they look smarmy and like they're filled with lies.
They're clearly villains. They're up to something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, another one of those episodes where Troy is conveniently not around. The Breckians are just full of total bullshit. They're lying. This is not medicine. They're laughing all the way to the bank. But Troy's just, she's in her bath. She has the week off. I don't know.
Dejan and Romus are feeling fine. In fact, too fine. Felicium's a narcotic.
Crusher figures it out that this is a drug. The Breckians, hundreds of years ago, figured out that the plague wasn't really a plague.
And when you say by it's drugs, you mean the whole race of Onarians are just addicted to this. There's no virus. There is no virus. They are not sick. They are just addicted to this medicine, and they don't even know it.
Right. The president of Onaria like phones in. He's also tweaking. He's just like, you got the stuff or what? And they're like, we're working on it. We need the stuff.
Do you have it? Yes, it is here, but you gotta get it to us. So please.
And then Picard calls them out on it, and they're just like, hey, you know.
It works for us, man.
It's a symbiotic relationship, hence the name of the episode. The Breckians have nothing. Their total source of income, which is all, these are all very simplified things for planetary scale.
Yeah.
In simplified terms, the Breckians have no industry or whatever. Their sole source of income is the money
The
from
bulk
the
of their
Onarians.
society is entirely geared towards making drugs.
Yes, to supply to a planet that pays for them. It's a symbiotic relationship. And they knowingly are the bad, Breckians knowingly are the bad guys because they are keeping them enslaved to them by drug use.
It really should have been called Parasite, though. Symbiotes usually benefit both ways, but really, the Breckians are just using the Onarians. So the Onarians don't know that. They think it's a symbiosis.
If I could correct you, a parasite usually kills the host.
Okay.
Jean-Luc, this is not a symbiotic relationship. This is exploitation, pure and simple.
Well, they say, well, you know now. What are you going to do about it?
With a sly grin, the Breckians are just like, you have no jurisdiction here. We're not members of the Federation.
It's not your business.
Well, Captain Picard, he basically just says, no, my hand's tied. I can't do anything. This is a Prime Directive issue. And then, what's her face? The Breckian girl. Just the smuggest look on her face.
You just want to slap that lady right in the face. You just want to slap her face off. You want to slap the 1970s right out of her outfit. Go back to Battlestar Galactica. Right?
Battlestar Galactica doesn't want her.
No.
She's a piece of shit, Mike.
These people are awful. But in a sly move, Picard knows the solution to this problem. Crusher's like, why don't you do something? Just fucking bomb the planet Breccia and destroy their drug facility. And he's like, our hands are tied. And so David...
So it comes time to give them their drugs and put them back on their ship and off on your way. And they're like, oh good, you're gonna give us the new plasma coils we need and you're gonna fix our other ships? And Picard's like, nope.
In this situation, the Prime Directive prohibits me from helping you.
That's absurd.
You did not think so when it worked in your favor.
Can't do it.
No, they've lost the way to transport the drug, and so
the Prime Directive has tied my hands here too.
Right.
And that slapped the smug right out of her fucking face.
Like eventually, these ships are going to break down, and we can't move the drugs back and forth. Well, the Onarians are going to have to go through withdrawal. Dr. Crusher assures them, once you get through the withdrawal, you'll be okay.
Well, they don't even know about the withdrawals because they don't even tell them. They don't even inform them of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just something they have to deal with, and Picard's non-interference policy, the Prime Directive, applies perfectly here. Now, could the Breckians put out a message into space like, "Hey, we got a bunch of money. Can we buy some spaceships from, to solve this problem?" Maybe.
Maybe.
But Picard washed his hands of it and did his best and said, "This is how I want to solve this problem."
Engage.
And so season 1 contains a bunch of weird things that doesn't happen in other shows. I just wanted to make note of there's the sun. Their star is solar flaring up, right? Which
Yeah.
gives both races some kind of ability to use like solar energy to.
I don't know if they say that's why, but yeah, they both have
That's
electric
why.
powers.
The electric powers are from the sun, which doesn't really have a point.
It gives one of the. It gives. I'm calling him David because that was his name in Wrath of Khan. It gives David the ability to take Riker hostage, like near the end.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we need our drugs. I'll kill him.
Which is an interesting alternative to just pulling out a phaser, saying don't move, you know?
Yeah.
But could that have played into the plot of, you know, maybe you could use your solar energy to help you get over your withdrawals, or what was the point of that specifically? It didn't really have a conclusion.
I think it was they didn't want to make them look like idiots because they didn't confiscate any phasers they would have had on them.
Okay.
I think the point was to give them a weapon that Tasha Yar couldn't confiscate.
Yeah. And then another interesting thing that whoever wrote this put into it was when they approach the sun, Picard goes, "Oh," and then they mask it with a little black dot.
Oh, yeah.
And so I always thought, that never happened in later episodes. Like, yeah, if you look at the sun, even from the distance we are from it on Earth, but imagine being in a spaceship relatively close to it, how that would fucking blind you in a second.
Oh, it's sucking 10 forward.
Oh, yeah.
You can't put up the dot in 10 forward.
No, but I attribute that to maybe the view screen has a filter. You know, you put on those glasses to look at a solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Maybe the view screen has an automatic filter built in, but I thought that was a neat touch.
Yeah.
I found that interesting.
I also want to point out the most 80s thing ever happens in this episode. When in the middle of
Mr. T showed up.
The name is Mr. T. First name is Mr. Middle name is that period. Last name is T.
No, well, he may, you know what? He may as well have. Because Tasha Yar and Wesley.
That's on my list.
They have the dare PSA.
The more you know.
What I can't understand is why anyone would voluntarily become dependent on a chemical.
Like Mr. T should have showed up at the end of that. That's right, don't do drugs, kids.
On my home planet, there was so much poverty and violence that for some, the only escape is through drugs.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if you'd call it cringe or cute.
It's cute of its time.
Yeah, and you see, like, I did a little reading up on Denise Crosby and Tasha Yar, and it was her decision to leave the show.
Crosby asked to be written out of the show because the large ensemble cast just left no room for her to explore many of her own acting frontiers.
Because she felt she wasn't doing much.
You know what? Watching season 1, I think I get it a bit more because they did not really use Tasha Yar much in season 1. Not as much as I kind of remembered her being used.
Right.
It was no longer fun to be there anymore. I thought this is not fair. This is not fair to them, my other castmates. This is not fair to the legacy of this show, and it's not fair to me to be in a place that I didn't want to be in. And I was beginning to have feelings that I didn't like.
The irony is, if she lasted into like season 2 and 3, that's when they started focusing on the characters more. She probably would have been fleshed out a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, she had she mentioned the living on the planet with the rape gangs, and then they show a flashback in season 1 of her escaping a rape gang.
Mm-hmm. Now run. This place isn't safe at all.
But her complaint was, she just was basically like, I'm saying lines. And she didn't, the last episode where her character died was Skin of Evil. And in the beginning of that, she has some kind of like conversation with Worf. And she's like, if only my character had more moments like that where I got to act.
You are favored in the ship's pool.
You bet on me?
A sure thing.
And do something, say something important. And this is one of those moments. There's like 3 in the whole first season. And her telling Wesley all about drugs, naive little Wesley. Why would someone intentionally become addicted to a chemical.
Well, they only make you feel good temporarily. You know, it was such a Dare moment.
Yeah, it was cute. But Skin of Evil was not her last episode filmed.
Oh.
This
was the last episode she filmed.
This was the last
interesting.
Yeah, there's a famous exchange between her and Rick Berman, the producer, one of the producers on Star Trek. You know Rick Berman.
I know who Rick Berman is, yes.
Where he has Tasha Yar's comm badge. And he posted a tweet that said, here's Tasha Yar's comm badge. Tasha gave it to me on the last day of filming her final episode, Skin of Evil. And then Denise Crosby responded and wrote, "You're wrong, you prick. My last episode of filming, we filmed out of order, technically with Symbiosis. You grabbed my comm badge from me and said, you won't be needing this anymore."
Oh, damn!
So Denise Crosby put him on blast. So it's a relatively famous exchange on Twitter. But as noted in one of my next episodes, Worf in that position just feels so much better. Him up there. There's even a scene where Tasha and Worf are both on the curved console, the technical station. And he's doing something here and she's doing something here. And you just, when those shots are there, low shots, and Worf's up there, it just feels right.
Listen, and listen good. I'm talking to you.
I have two kind of half picks left.
Out of 26 episodes?
I've got one episode that I liked, but I have almost nothing interesting to say about it because I have no notes. I just wrote the episode name down, and that's terrible. I have another one. I don't know if you want to talk about this. I have it written down. I took notes on it because I remembered liking this from season 1.
All right, we'll go
and then
for
I
it.
sat down to watch it, and it was crap.
Oh boy. I don't know where to start here. You pick it.
All right, I guess I'll talk about the one I kind of remembered liking, but it was crap.
All right.
Because it's more interesting to talk about.
I hope it's not one of my favorites.
It's the Neutral Zone.
Ah.
Yeah, the Neutral Zone is an episode where Picard's he's off the ship having some important meeting somewhere on the Enterprise, sitting around waiting for him to show back up. But they scan some old space debris floating around. And because they got the extra time, Data wants to check out this ancient piece of technology in space.
The opportunity to examine such an ancient vehicle does not come around very often. And as you pointed out, we do have the time.
And they beam aboard, and Worf is confused by old-timey doors that you had to physically open yourself.
Yeah.
It's like he tries to walk into it, he's confused because it's not opening. On the ship, they find cryogenically frozen people from our time. And I remembered it as being this cutesy episode where people from our time get to wake up and we're in the future now, and it's a cute little thing. And instead, they're all horrible assholes.
Except for the one lady.
Except for the one lady. But they take them aboard, but the crisis is at the same time they're finding these people on board. Picard gets back from his meeting, and it turns out they want the Enterprise to head into the Neutral Zone because for the first time in 50 years, the Romulans might be causing trouble.
This is the season finale.
This is the season fucking finale because in the Neutral Zone, some Federation planets have I think that they've lost contact. They're seemingly gone, and we have to go investigate that. But while we're investigating this incident that might lead to a horrible war, we've got these doofuses from the 20th century on our ship, and we got to deal with that.
I, for one, never had a doubt. My stock in this company must have split at least a dozen times by now.
That's a Space Cop joke comes from that. The guy who's unfrozen and wants to check his stocks.
Oh, God, that's a direct reference, and I missed it.
He's concerned with wealth.
Yeah.
This is where Picard famously says, in the future, we don't need money or greed or, material things. We've solved war and poverty and hunger.
A lot has changed in the past 300 years. People are no longer obsessed with the accumulation of things. We have eliminated hunger, want, the need for possessions. We've grown out of our infancy.
This is one of those episodes that kind of just does a little bit to establish what life might be like on Earth, which we rarely see now. This utopia without money. We don't need money. It's not a problem. You don't have to worry about your stock, sir. You don't have to keep bringing it up every 2 minutes. There's three characters from the past. There is sad housewife. There is comical joke country singer, and then there's business.
Yes.
Who's all about business, and he's got his business.
I, for one, never had a doubt. My stock in this company must have split at least a dozen times.
I need to make a phone call as soon as possible.
A phone call?
Well,
Yes, I have provided for myself.
But he was a full partner in
substantial
right away about
It
my
is simply
account.
that I
Rest
have more
assured,
to protect
the interest
than that of
alone
your
could be
position
enough to
to
buy this
possibly
ship.
imagine.
And control. It's all about control.
I want to say he has a mild arc because at the end he storms on the bridge and kind of helps with the Romulan.
It's not even an arc. We see the Romulans for the first time, and we're on the view screen, and we find out that the Romulans, their colonies have been disappearing along the border too. So there's some kind of mutual threat that both the Federation and the Romulans have to worry about. Turns out it's the Borg. But none of them know that yet. And Picard's trying to figure out what the Romulans are like. Tell us what you know about these colonies that disappeared. And the Romulans are being all coy. Well, we could tell you, but no. And then business guy shows up on the bridge.
They haven't got a clue. They're hoping you know, but they're too arrogant to ask.
Because he wants to talk to Picard, he wants to see the manager. Like, he shows up on the bridge for no fucking reason. Just, I have to see what's going on because I'm the asshole character, and I'm gonna be an asshole. And he just says, no, they don't know what's going on. They're lying. That's his only contribution. That's not an arc.
All right, I figured it was bigger than that.
No,
but I couldn't remember.
that's the thing. I remembered it as being bigger. In my memory, haven't seen this episode in 20 years, I thought he had an arc.
He's so good at business and reading people and negotiating deals. He could tell that an alien species is lying.
But it was obvious. They didn't need him. This is another episode where Troy would have done the same thing.
She was mysteriously absent from the bridge or just sitting there?
I think she was mysteriously absent from the bridge. I think she was handling sad housewife's problems.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she was helping her look up her descendants or something.
10 generations of your progeny. Everyone I've ever known is dead.
Yeah, none of these people seem very grateful to be alive 500 years later.
Yeah.
There's no trace of my money. My office is gone. What will I do?
It just seems like a waste of an episode where they could have said something, but they didn't say anything.
For a season finale, I mean, I guess they were teasing some big threat that was supposedly threatening both the Federation and the Romulans, but they should have had maybe something a little more exciting happen.
It should have been maybe more focused on the Romulans, because this is the big reveal. This is like we're seeing the Romulans again for the first time since the 60s. Yeah. And we get that glorious reveal of the new Romulan warbird. It's one of my favorite fucking spaceships. And it's wasted in this episode.
But I'm really glad you didn't, when you prefaced it by saying an episode that you thought was great a long time ago, and then you rewatched it and it sucked. I'm really glad you didn't say conspiracy, because I knew that sucked right from the beginning.
I always hated conspiracy. Everyone always says conspiracy is a good episode from season 1, and I'm like, what the fuck are you smoking?
I mean, it's oh god, they didn't know what to do. They wanted to establish a big thing coming up.
They wanted to establish a big threat, but Star Trek The Next Generation, to me, it doesn't need a big threat. Star Trek The Next Generation is all about feeling good, feeling calm. Star Trek The Next Generation feels like home. All that kind of paranoia, there are enemies in our midst shit, was far better suited for Deep Space Nine, and it was done far better in Deep Space Nine.
The fucking threat with the stop motion beetles. Picard meets some captains on a secret planet. There's a fucking thing going on. Oh, this sounds really good. Oh, it's bugs.
It wasn't the right show for that kind of thing. Just Next Gen.
Yeah, no. It was too early.
It was too early. Deep Space Nine, it had to mature. You had to care about the world more, I think, first before you got to tearing it down. I don't know.
And yes, that's a good point. And the villain was silly.
Yeah.
A bug that crawled in your mouth and took over your body. And their whole approach to, like, getting the scene where the Admiral tries to get Riker to eat a bug.
Come, have a look.
I think I'll summon my science officer.
It won't like your science officer. It does like you.
Like, okay, put a hypo spray in his neck when he's not looking. Done. He's like, fucking open the case, look at the bug. It's a life form you haven't seen before. It wants to crawl in your fucking mouth. And Riker's like, security, to the quarters, help. And bad approach if you have this vast conspiracy to take over the biggest united federation of planets in the fucking galaxy. You better have a better plan than that.
That episode, Conspiracy, was also Roddenberry's fuck you to the studio and the censors. It's like, fuck you, I can do what I want. I'm going to have the goriest fucking death I want to have. That's why the enemy at the end of that just kind of melts.
His head blows up.
Yeah.
And which I thought was oddly excessive because all they did was Crusher phasered the old Admiral into subconscious, and then the bug crawled out of his mouth.
Roddenberry was trying to make some kind of weird point against somebody.
Okay.
That was the thing.
I think Remick was the queen alien.
Yeah.
He had the monster inside of him, so maybe he couldn't be saved. But Picard didn't know that, so they just aimed their phasers and blew his head off.
That episode sucks.
Yeah, okay.
But so does my episode that I'm talking right about now, the neutral zone. It sucks. That's the neutral zone. It sucks.
Enjoy it.
My third pick, which I thoroughly enjoy and or love, an episode called The Arsenal of Freedom.
Oh!
It's great. There's some problems with it.
It's almost like a guilty pleasure because it's not. I don't think you could call that like a smart episode.
No. Symbiosis, Ethical, and Prime Directive. My next episode, The Arsenal of Freedom, I wrote Fun Adventure.
Yeah.
And I have a third one that's a character study. But The Arsenal of Freedom, what else could you want from an episode of Star Trek in season 1? That's not dull. That's adventurous and exciting. And fun.
I will give you this.
The Arsenal of Freedom, the episode. The premise is the Enterprise arrives at a planet called Minos in search for the USS Drake, which disappeared, investigating the planet Minos. All the people are gone. When they get there, they get an automated salesman who appears on their view screen, who's trying to sell them weapons of war. And at first, Picard thinks he's talking to some guy, but it turns out it's a recording.
It is a recorded message, sir.
This planet got super wealthy selling weapons to two different planets fighting each other, or peoples, races fighting each other, whatever. They get there and they should have just immediately left, but they have to investigate the Drake. So Riker, Tasha Yar, and Data beam down to investigate. And the planet's overgrown with vegetation. This probably happened hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
No, everyone's dead. Everyone's dead or gone.
The equipment's still working.
The equipment's still working to sell you weapons if you want to buy them. So they beam down, and Riker runs into Captain Rice, the captain of the Drake, which has just recently disappeared. And he's old friends with him. They went to the academy together, and he's like, hey, and he's like, hello, Will Riker.
Keeps asking him like weird questions.
Yes, he's like, what's the armament of your spaceship? So Riker detects something suspicious, so he plays a little prank on him, and he's like, my ship, it's called the Lollipop. It's a good ship. What is the armament of the Lollipop? Like, he's like, okay.
No, the name of my ship is the Lollipop.
I have no knowledge of that ship.
It's just been commissioned. It's a good ship.
There's something wrong with you. So it's just a holographic projection of someone that they scan the data banks, and it's a very smart, sophisticated weapon system. And then the fun part is when a drone comes out and starts shooting lasers at everybody, and they're on some terrible set, like Next Gen, like later seasons, like they all got in a van and they drove out to the desert of California to film in real life, And some of the early sets in seasons 1 and 2, they're like TOS sets where they're on a sound stage and there's just a monochrome sky and plants, like potted plants everywhere. The planet looks terrible, but the concept's fun. And so they have to defend themselves against these drones that are attacking them that just get more and more powerful.
They keep adapting.
And then Riker is encased in like a bubble where he's like frozen, and Picard's like, okay, this situation is getting bad. I'm going to beam down with Dr. Crusher. They fall in a hole. Dr. Crusher horribly breaks her leg. And so then it becomes like a survival episode.
Yeah.
Since so many senior staff members are down on the planet's surface, our B plot involves Geordi being put in command by Captain Picard.
Is, I think, by far the best part of the episode.
Yeah.
Red alert, battle stations.
There's a section of the show that didn't quite develop. It's the Picard and Dr. Crusher. They fall in a cave in the ground or something. They needed a really good bonding moment, which they kind of worked on. Dr. Crusher tells Picard, she starts like letting him know she knows about herbal medicine. She's like, break that root off over there. And is there like a material in it? Maybe it can cauterize my, blood clot in my leg. How do you know so much about roots? She's like, my grandmother lived on this colony, and
we all know about Dr. Crusher's grandmother.
7 seasons later, we learn all about Dr. Crusher's grandmother, which was a nice thing. They brought it all the way back to season 1. But there's always this teeming sexual tension between Picard and Crusher.
Season 1, they tried to write it like that was a big major subplot that was going to be going on.
It fizzles out.
Yeah. Star Trek
is... Naked Now, there's that when they're drunk, they've got that super attraction to each other. And then in the show Attached.
That's when, like, 6 years later, somebody said, "Oh yeah, weren't we supposed to be shipping them?"
Which Dr. Crusher again mentions her grandmother in that episode too.
The sharing of thoughts and feelings is quite compelling.
Very.
But in Attached, it opens with them having breakfast, and it ends with them having breakfast, and they have a totally different understanding of each other.
Mm-hmm.
In this, Picard saves Crusher's life, essentially helps her, with her leg, and then they get rescued. There's not a scene at the end of this episode. It's like they get beamed up and rescued, and then it's not resolved. At the end, Picard could have come into sickbay. Beverly says, "Thank you for saving my life, Jean-Luc." Personalize it. No problem, Beverly. Anytime. We'll talk more about this in the future.
I think season 1 episodes, like in general, are like focused on whatever the plot of that episode is, and they don't. Season 1, I think one of the problems overall with season 1 is they didn't stop to smell the roses with the characters like that. You're missing those moments. You're missing, like, there's no Riker's poker games in season 1. It's all, we've got to stop the thing that's the thing this week.
We've got to work out the problem.
Yeah.
Which, as much as I like TOS, that's a lot of TOS. It's very little backstory, except for Spock.
Mm-hmm.
The minor characters, forget it.
Oh, yeah.
But this, it's like, you after seeing all 7 seasons of Next Gen, you want those moments in those early seasons. And really, it's just like, Picard finds the computer. And, it's a Deus Ex Machina ending, more or less, right? Just, we want to buy your stuff. Problem solved.
I think that's really clever. I do like the ultimate resolution of this episode where they stop the robots from attacking them by buying the robots. Because they're salesmen. It made perfect sense.
Fine. It was a way to wrap it up. But you mentioned the more interesting B story of the show does kind of deal with the forbidden Roddenberry interpersonal conflict, which was, interestingly enough, the more interesting part of the show.
Why are we still in orbit? We're taking a beating.
We've got to hold out as long as we can. Now, if we can disable our attacker, if only for a few seconds, we can drop our shields and beam the away team back aboard.
Geordi is put in command. Geordi is not the chief engineer in season 1. He's just Lieutenant Geordi LaForge.
Can I say how odd it is that season 1, for all intents and purposes, there is no set chief engineer? No. That's so weird.
Well,
I think there's one guy that shows up a couple of times, that fat beard guy.
The fat beard guy, he disappears, and then there's a different chief engineer at some point. I think there's there was no counselor in TOS. I think they wanted to say let's have different roles. Like Scotty was third in command. Whenever Kirk and Spock and McCoy were gone, Scotty was in charge, always.
Yeah.
He commanded the Enterprise. He's the next in line. And so that was in this situation with your doctor, who's a commander, Riker and Picard gone, really the next in line is the chief engineer. Or I guess the second officer, Data, who's also gone.
Mm-hmm. In view of the present crisis, I believe you should relinquish command to me.
No.
I outrank you.
Mr. Logan, I'm in command.
Yeah, the chief engineer comes up, and you can tell he's one, an asshole, and two, probably a little racist. and he's like, yeah.
The captain did not anticipate the Enterprise would come under attack. If he had, would he have left the bridge to you?
If he had, he wouldn't have left the ship.
Hey, Captain Picard, put me in charge until he gets back. I'm in command. And so there's Geordi's stressed out. Troy can tell that he's really worried. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then on top of that, he's got two young ensigns that he's got to take to the battle bridge that are also inexperienced. And he, being inexperienced and nervous himself, has to be the strong leader for them.
He has to project the leadership and the confidence.
Right. And so it's a growth moment for Geordi LaForge, surprisingly in an early season 1 episode.
Yeah.
Engage.
It's a rare moment when separating the saucer section seems like a good choice. Because usually in season 1, the first time they separate the saucer section in Encounter at Farpoint,
they just wanted to
they would have never
have
done that in later seasons. And in later seasons, when you're separate the saucer section.
They should have did it far more than they did, really.
Yeah.
Anytime they were heading into something they knew was dangerous, they should have been putting all of the families on the saucer and jettisoning that shit.
Geordi's in orbit. And then a bigger version of the drone is flying around in orbit, attacking spaceships, shooting at the Enterprise. The Enterprise can't handle it. It's going to come back in a bit. Geordi has to make the decision. Do I let this bossy asshole engineer take command, and do I back down to him, or do I make my own decision? His decision is separate the saucer, send it away, which is an amazing amount of space action and adventure for a season 1 episode. It's just a fun all-around adventure episode that is surprisingly tight and not cringy or racist.
Okay, I guess we're back to me then, but we kind of already talked about what would have been my number 1 pick. It would have been Symbiosis. So I don't really have another one. I got a half pick if you want to talk about it.
I have a half pick as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wrote down Home Soil.
That is my half
pick
as well.
In my notes, I have nothing written down under Home Soil. I just have Home Soil written down because, it's all right.
Home Soil feels very TOS.
It reminds me of Devil in the Dark, but just done worse.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes.
Home Soil is an episode where there's a planet with some colonists who are terraforming the planet, and they stumble across. There was what is Starfleet sent in there?
Here, well,
You go for it.
This is my point. This is my notes. This is my point of comedy, right?
Okay.
The Enterprise visits to check up on their progress, right?
Is that all it was? It was just we're seeing how you're doing.
And their arrival causes a cascade of events that destroys multiple people's lives. So they show up, right? And the old man is just like, we're fine.
We were a little behind, but we're back on schedule.
Leave us alone. And Troy, being nosy Troy, is like, he's hiding something.
It's a good thing we had Troy for that.
It's a good thing he's hiding something, Captain. He doesn't want us to come down there. We're fine. We're working on the thing. We're a little behind. Well, what's going on? Just forget it. Go away. He's hiding something. He's like, well, we're coming down.
Director Mandel, we've heard of your remarkable achievements in terraforming. My crew would very much appreciate looking around.
This is not really the best time.
Fine. They go down.
Thank God we had Troy.
And then they meet the innocent lady who's plucky and excited and just loves terraforming and is so excited. And the visit by the Enterprise ruins her whole life. Her whole life work. So they come down and they start snooping around, and then they get a guy killed.
You know, I'm gonna defend Troy here. They actually had a clever use of Troy in this episode because she senses that someone's in danger because she sensed their distress. And usually they just have Troy say obvious things about a character like he's hiding something. Well, no shit. But this time she's actually useful.
Yeah.
She wasn't in time to save the guy, but it was kind of like an early warning thing, just because she sensed somebody was in peril in the other room.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. So one of the workers, the terraformers, goes in the laser digging room, the laser drilling room, and there's little pieces of tiny glass, like that are alive. When they come together with like saline or salt or something.
The saline works like as salt water works like a conductor.
Yeah, and so they become a life. They're basically a life form of something that's beyond our comprehension.
It's a life form that is so different we didn't register it as being a life form. It wasn't like any life we've seen before.
So these poor people have been on this planet for 25 years terraforming it. And when the Enterprise shows up, that's when the life forms make themselves known. One of the terraformers gets lasered to death in the laser room, and then they're like, oh God, now we've got to investigate this. And then Data goes into the laser room, and then it tries to kill Data. But Data's too smart for it, so he rips the lasers out of the wall. And the other guy comes in and goes, oh my God, these lasers, they cost $100,000.
A year's work destroyed.
And they're irreplaceable. I had to fucking rip them out of the wall and trash them because I'm Data. And oh God, why won't you people leave?
Mike, if the Enterprise didn't show up, these terraformers would have destroyed this intelligent life form.
It would have been a shame.
It would have been a shame. But then they discover the life forms and they bring them on the ship. And then it turns into a different episode.
Yeah, they start to take over, they start to grow, and then...
It changes from a we're investigating the weird things going on into this planet episode into a this thing has taken over the ship episode.
It's fine.
It's fine. I'm not saying it's bad. Just
episodes take a turn.
Yeah.
Know. Humorously enough, they refer to the collection of crystals as the microbrain.
Meaning? Meaning, the microbrain might be photoelectric.
That's okay, because the collection of crystals refers to humanity as the ugly sacks of mostly water.
Ugly, giant bags of mostly water.
Bags of mostly water?
But I find it funny because later on, Q calls Worf microbrain.
Pity.
You might have learned an interesting lesson, macro head, with a micro brain.
I guess it's a Prime Directive episode primarily. They realize that the crystals are a life form, and then Picard says, I guess you're done with this planet, pack up and get out. Yes, I guess a couple of sparkling pieces of glass, when they come together, they are sand crystals. I guess they're super small. When they come together, they can think, and they're different than us, and we should respect that, you know, all that Star Trek stuff. But it's just kind of funny how clumsy and disastrous the whole scenario is.
See, it just reminds me of a TOS episode that was done much better over 20 years beforehand, called Devil in the Dark, which is some similarities where you got the colonists with overalls, so instead of terraforming, they're mining, and this life form just keeps killing off the colonists, and the Enterprise has to show up. And then, similar to Home Soil and Devil in the Dark, we find out that the life form is intelligent, and it's just trying to defend itself from these miners who are destroying its offspring.
Yep, it's protecting its eggs.
Mr. Vanderberg, what is this?
It's a silicon nodule. There are a million of them down there, no commercial value.
It's the famous Spock mind meld with a big lump of turd.
It's got one of my favorite, like, Kirk and Bones moments where Bones is trying to heal this life form that's silicon-based, kind of like the sand crystals. Oh, and he says, damn it, I'm a doctor, not a masonist, or something like that, not a construction worker. And Kirk's like, damn it, Bones, you're a healer. Now heal.
Help it. Treat it.
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
You're a healer. There's a patient. That's an order.
But in the end, instead of the colonists' lives being ruined, they learn to work together with the life form to their mutual benefit.
The Enterprise doesn't leave with an entire industry and people's careers in ruins by just swinging by to see what's going on. I guess they saved a couple of grains of sand. Well, lastly, let's talk about my last pick, which I reluctantly picked. Now, I'll remind you, this was after rewatching all the episodes. I've always hated this episode, or kind of not really cared at all. But considering all the kinds of stories they tell in the first season of Star Trek, it gets a nod. It's Heart of Glory, the Worf episode. Mm-hmm. Where there's a weird freighter that's in distress, and they beam over, a whole kind of action-packed opening, and they discover on this freighter, which is not a Klingon freighter, they discover 3 Klingons. And so they're like, okay, we got to rescue them, beam them over. And so it's really the first real character-centric episode. And I don't like Klingon stuff. I don't like Worf Klingon politics. I like Worf a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Worf has so many great moments. And I just saw one the other day when I was watching the episode with the fish people, you know, and they're like these ugly fish people that are frozen, and Worf just goes, handsome race.
What a handsome race.
It's just so like awkward.
What was the one where Worf's trying to like pick out a wedding gift?
Yeah.
Just Worf trying to pick out like looking at fancy feminine glasswork. There's something amusing about that.
Right.
Yes? There is a female voice asking if we want room service.
The Royale, when they discover that the astronaut lived to 100 and died in his sleep, and Worf just says, terrible way to die.
Dying peacefully in your sleep, yes.
Yes, a horrible way to die.
Looks like the poor devil died in his sleep.
What a terrible way to die.
So Worf conflicting with human culture, you know, the differences. And there's also a funny bit too, season 2. Riker tries to make breakfast for everybody, and it's fucking awful and disgusting. Pulaski hates it, Geordi hates it, but Worf's like scarfing it up, and he just says delicious. And of course, Worf eats live worms, so it's not It's not the best compliment to Riker.
Delicious.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's funny.
It's cute.
So
It's cute.
in addition, and Worf's not just a joke, you know, he's a good character and he has good scenes. But typically I don't like Klingon politics stuff. This one is out of the norm because these Klingons beam aboard, and in future episodes, Klingons are just awful to Worf. And in this, they're fairly polite, even when the Klingon commander aboard it's like a D7 battle cruiser. It's reused footage from the motion picture of a Klingon ship approaching, and he's like, my brother, help me. We need to find these fugitives, because the Klingons turn out to be fugitives.
Yeah.
And
well, they're Klingons that have rejected peace, basically.
Yes.
Does it make you gentle as it fills your heart with peace?
Because Klingons are at peace now.
They're basically terrorists.
Yeah.
And they don't want to adhere to the peace treaty, the norms. They want
They
battle.
want to be warriors and to have glorious battles.
They want to be martyrs. And so that's why they steal this vessel, but then they're like, ooh, this one.
We have heard this ship can separate in time of battle.
Yes. When relieved of its bulk, the Enterprise becomes an exceptional weapon.
We've got one of our own on here. He'll help us.
Right. And Worf's loyalties are tested, albeit not very strongly tested.
Yeah.
Like Worf knows better than to run off with these jackasses. They're not really testing him, but we learn.
It's weird that this is early enough that as an audience, you might doubt Worf's loyalties.
Yeah.
Because watching this now, it's like, come on.
Right. Come on. But there's not, they're like, don't you want to die in glorious battle? And Worf's like, kind of. They make fun of humans. They're like, you want to sit around and live in comfort and enjoy peace. They're like making fun of him, and he's like, do you mock me? But Worf's smarter than these guys, and but still, there's that conflict, and there's
a part of Worf that would love to run off and join them in battles and glories.
Yeah.
A part of Worf.
Yeah. So they concoct a scheme to steal the battle bridge and use it to just fucking blow shit up. and
for no real reason too. It's not like they have one enemy they're focused on, right? They just want to cause trouble.
I will demand Captain Picard give us access to the battle bridge. We will separate from the rest of the ship. Then together, we will light up the galaxy. Imagine the fear that will roll before us.
Yeah. They're kind of insane.
Yeah.
And then so we're introduced to the Klingon death ritual, the opening of the eyes and screaming, and Worf takes part in it. And really at the end, they're put into the brig, and they escape. One of them dies. The last one is up on the top level of the Warp Core
room. Yeah.
He's pleading with Worf, and Worf just fucking murders him, and he does it right because that's the way the guy wanted to die. So in doing that, he also respected Klingon culture, and he gives him the Klingon death chant at the end. Here's
what I want to say about this episode. How important is this episode to the development of not Worf but Klingons? In the original series, the Klingons were very different.
Yeah.
Culturally, they were very different.
Right. They were just general bad guys.
Yeah. Like, we didn't start getting modern Klingons. I think the first time we really saw one outside of a cameo was Star Trek 3.
Yes. We see them in the motion picture. We see the new makeup in the motion picture. When
Yeah, but they don't do anything but blow up.
Yeah, they're just like, kill it. But 3 is when we get more. That's, I think, the most, the first kind of idea of Klingon culture hierarchy. The captain just executes people on the ship. We discover they're basically like really bad space pirates or something like. I don't know how you would describe them.
I'd say pirates is pretty accurate.
They don't really like attack other ships and loot and steal, but their culture is very, barbaric.
Yeah.
But yeah, in next gen terms.
This is where you start fleshing out their culture, their honor system.
Yeah. That's why this is a watershed episode, because it really introduced us. And I think that's what, like if I were to guess just blindly, I would say they made this episode and they said, wow, this guy that we had just as a random character is much more interesting as a guy who's in charge of security than Tasha Yar. Let's get rid of her.
Yeah. This guy we had on the show, just to establish that in the future, Klingons and humans are friendly. Look, there's even a Klingon in Starfleet now, but yeah. Now he's a character.
Yeah, and Worf also talks about his backstory, attack on Khitomer and his foster parents. He even mentions his foster brother, who shows up way later.
Nikolai?
Yes. Oh, Worf. This is my brother Worf. He's come to help us.
Yeah, that's it. I wanted to, talking about Heart of Glory made me think of some of the interesting stuff, and this is technical, this is show's budget related. You know, obviously we don't see 10 Forward until season 2, but we see an early version of 10 Forward. It's just like a room with a window. They have a I think it's Haven. They have a like a dinner scene there. Heart of Glory, they don't have a brig set yet, the wonderful brig set that we see in later seasons. So they just walk into like an empty room down the hallway. And then in one of the later episodes, we'll always have Paris. They show he's playing fencing, and what looks to be like a half-constructed gymnasium, which kind of looks sort of like the shuttle bay. And they only shoot it from one direction, and you could kind of see the wall. Because earlier in the Tasha Yar episode, when she does demonstrates her like karate skills, they go into the holodeck to do that, not a gym. Season 2, when Riker does the ultimate expression of martial arts, they have a whole room devoted to it, and it's like a gymnasium kind of room. So obviously season 2 they built bigger sets, but it seemed like the fencing scene was like a shuttle bay about to appear, because I don't think they showed a shuttle bay in season 1 at all.
You know what? I don't remember. I should have kept track of shit like that.
I don't think so.
There's a lot of work in progress with season 1.
Yes.
Season 1 is really weird. When I was watching season 1, I kept feeling like it was just made by entirely different people.
Oh yeah.
Like it felt like a show where they just had the same sets and identical twins of all of the actors, you know? Different people writing it, different people producing it, different people filming it. Characters are played differently.
Yeah.
It's like prototype TNG.
Right. You can hear the voice of the writer. There's an episode later on, I think it's season 2, where Riker keeps saying, "Hold fast." Like Worf's like, "What should I do?" "Hold fast, Worf." And it's like, okay, is that some kind of military term? Like Riker has never said that in any other episode. As the show moves on, they iron all that out, and it becomes much more consistent.
This is how this fictional technology works. This is the kind of terminology they would use to say these things. Yeah.
Yep. Somebody figure it out. And Gene Roddenberry, stay out of it.
He was too sick by that point. It's probably what made the show better.
Yeah, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed.
I did not.
Okay.
I did not enjoy it, but it was curious. I'll say that it was curious.
It's an interesting experiment. After ignoring season 1 for 20 years, going back and watching it with like fresh eyes and kind of like understanding a little better of why it's bad, or why certain episodes don't feel right, or this changed, that changed, et cetera, et cetera. It's a good experiment to do.
Yeah.
But I hope the audience at home enjoyed us talking about it.
Hopefully. And if there's one thing to take away from this, start at season 3.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
Maybe go back and watch the couple episodes we talked about here, but you could kind of skip the rest of them.
Because I think I saw like a comment on one of like our older videos. It was like, I think of TNG and I think that show hasn't aged today. What are you talking about? And I saw like a comment, yeah, I started watching it and it's kind of dated. I'm like, what? Oh, they started at season 1. No! No! Of course you would, but no!
I feel like such an idiot.
Quite right. So you should.
Anyways, thanks for watching.
Bye.
And please don't ask us to do any top videos from season 2. I guess we will.
That'd be easy. That would be easy. One of them was already for our top picks, A Measure of a Man.
Yeah, that's true. So there might be some redundancy if we go through all the seasons, but
I got one from season 2 that's continually barely missed out on my top picks.
what is it? You know what's interesting though, Rich? No one in the whole world is talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3. Not a single person.